Hi, Professor Debashis, and very good morning. And thank you so much for giving your time, and wonderful to have you and to have a conversation with you.
Thank you for inviting me in. Appreciate that, Sandeep.
Perfect. So, Professor Debashis, today's discussion I thought would be maybe we can cover a little bit around about failures. There's a lot of talk about success and in this world, and so I just thought if you can share your perspective around failures and how do you see failures, in however we are doing things, and how does the world perceive them, and how do we see them? Any thoughts on that? If you could share a little bit around that.
Okay, let me tell you, the way we define that word is a function of what perspective you are bringing to failure. It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of point of view. So if I say I have a cup of tea that I'm drinking here, this is a bad cup of tea. So it is a failure not of tea. Tea hasn't failed. What has failed is the process of making good tea. And so immediately when it's bad cup of tea, you'll ask for a better cup of tea, right? So your idea of process when it comes to objects is based on, well, there was something wrong in the process. And so I would like to rectify it. That's the orientation. I have a beautiful example that comes to mind. Since I might forget, I'll just, you are in Nainital and this is a beautiful lake called Lake Naini because it looks like the eye of a person. So Nayan and Naini, that's how the name of the lake comes about. So you're cruising and you're rowing a boat. All of a sudden, another boat hits you from behind. And it's an empty boat. So what you do, you say, oh, okay, somehow that empty boat has hit my boat and some wind may have propelled the boat in this direction. So you take your oar and you move away the empty boat from the path and you move on. So you've just rectified the process, right? But imagine a person sitting inside the boat and his skin complexion is something that you have grown up being critical about. And he comes from a ethnic background that you've been critical about. And he has a height and an appearance that you feel not too pleasing to your eyes. Immediately you'll ascribe the accident, the failure of the process, to this individual's idiocy. You're not going to look at the process anymore. You're going to dump the process and you will simply focus your attention on being critical of the person. So failure is an event. It is not a process. Failing is the process. So please understand the distinction. When I'm failing to do something, it's a verb. Failure is a noun. So you simply say, I have failed. That's a noun, or that's a statement of an event. But when you say I am failing, that simply means that I would now know how not to do this wrong process and get to the right one. So failing is what is important to understand. How do you fail? Without failing, there is no success. In fact, success is more mischievous than failure. Because, failure is the pillar of success. Success is the caterpillar, because it is simply saying that there's only one way to succeed, which is my way, which I have done in the past. So I think, and then I realized that the tools that I used in the past are no longer relevant. And so my becoming a champion in school, getting a gold medal, will not get me the gold medal in college. My becoming a gold medalist in college will not get me the gold medal in professional courses. So I have to prepare for that ground differently because the processes are different, right? And so please understand the distinction between failure and failing. And once you get that, you will not have what you might call the man in the boat syndrome. It's an empty boat, just that a man happens to be there. So don't crucify the man for a process failure. And so that's where our whole assessment of failures go wrong. And my notion of failure is just as I described to you. It's a process that you have to deconstruct and figure out how has the process become misleading and how do you correct it? How do you make these corrections? Go ahead.
Thanks for that perspective. And the man in the boat is one part, but the other part is also that I am in the boat, right? So a lot of times when we fail, at least when I used to fail, I used to ascribe it to my own self, and I used to, become critical of self. And that really got me into a loop of, getting stuck in failure even more. So why do you think we ascribe failure towards or attribute it to ourselves? And what's the process you think happens there on the other side?
So the thing is that we have never been taught growing up the distinction between self-observation and self-flagellation or self-criticism. When you observe yourself, you are like the judge. You're not taking sides, right? When you're observing yourself dispassionately, that ability to observe one's own life dispassionately is a gift that we all have. There's a mirror internal to us, which is not going to tell us exaggerated versions of who we are. It's only when we develop mindsets that vitiates the process of observation. It simply means that while I'm observing, I'm coloring my observation with my emotions, with my past, models of what is right, what is wrong. And so in this colored mind that begins to color the process of observation in distracting colors, that's where self-criticism comes in. So to go back to the process of self-observation, our ancients call this swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means you study yourself. When you're studying geography, when you're studying botany, you're objective. You don't take sides. You're studying as a phenomena. So the self can be studied objectively. And that objectivity, when we lose balance in life. Because, fundamentally, it starts, the prejudices that start from within you will spread through you to all parts. If you're a very powerful man, your mental prejudice will become a national prejudice and a global prejudice. So those prejudices are very, very important to watch. And so when you start blaming yourself for your failures, you're simply losing the distinction between self-observation and self-criticism or self-judgment based on other observations. Those judgments are not that important. You can judge. Mind is given the ability to judge. Your intellect can judge. But when you solidify, when you essentially lose your capacity for judging and lose it to judgments of the past, models of the past. So the moment I say every politician is, and I stop for a while, the judgment that goes up in the head is, what words you will say about politicians. But that's a judgment. So when you judge a specific politician, you will have to activate your ability to discriminate, to be able to see that this is a new phenomenon, I have to observe it before I pass a judgment. And so observation, the ability to observe things internally as well as externally, is what is never taught in school. So you go to Japan, when children visit a zoo in Japan, they're asked to spend a whole day. Maybe for 1 hour, they're looking at one animal or one bird. And they're not given data, this is a bird of this species, this bird has come from this country. None of that is given. They have to figure this out for themselves. So they're observing a parrot, let's say. And so they are bringing their own ability to observe phenomena. They see things that none of the books they teach them, right? They come up with the bizarre and very interesting observations on the parrot. But we are never taught that. The moment I go to a zoo from a school here, somebody will tell you, this is this, don't you know? Remember, the color of the parrot is green, the beak is red, but you parrots in different colors, different shades. And so children observe this much more. And so look at the power of observation. I look at an Indian teacher is taking a kid to a kindergarten school for training, and the teacher says to the kid, tell me what is the color of an apple. It's a preparatory class for facing the tough exam of going into kindergarten. And the kid says, the color of an apple is white. The mother says, no, it is red. Say it is red. And the kid repeats, it is white. The mother is exasperated. She says, tell me why is it white? Kid says, if you cut the apple, is it not white? And so the kid sees the internal part of the apple. But what the kid has never been taught in school is that apple is neither red, nor white, nor green, nor brown. Apple is simply appling. It becomes green and it turns red, it turns brown, it rots, it assumes another hue. And so the entirety of what you call apple is a process of appling. And if the kid is an observer, the kid is only seeing the appling, it is not seeing the apple. And that is where the distinction has to be made. You must teach your kids from childhood how to observe phenomena, independent of judgments of the past, independent of books, independent of historical literature. That's where we go wrong. We completely pollute the ability of the kids to witness something objectively.
And I think that's also a fresh perspective, right? That when you see or experience something, can you drop your past experience of it and experience it in its entirety in the moment.